Alright guys, what's up? Today I'm bringing you another non-meta deck that is actually getting some new support soon. And I think these guys, as soon as all the new support for them is out, they could definitely be one of the, if not the best rogue deck of the next meta. Um, so I just want to go over Gem Knights real quick, talk about them and what they're all about. Alright, so Gem Armadillo, probably one of the best cards in this deck. When it's normal summoned, I add a Gem Knight monster from my deck to my hand. So that means if I need a combo piece for something, I just summon him, put that Gem Knight in my hand, and I'm ready to go. It's a floater, it keeps my hand size big, lets me custom design my hand. It's awesome. Um, Gem Knight Alexandrite, I tribute that card, special summon one Gem Knight normal monster from my deck. Again, it's another toolbox piece. It lets me search my deck for whatever I need, and it can easily let me go right into Gem Knight Crystal, who has 2450 attack, normal monster. So really easy way to get out a 2450 beater against like Dino Rabbit and shit. They have Logia on the field. Um, if it, I mean, this thing gets over Logia and shit, which is awesome. And it's a 7-star monster, and I'll get into later how you can easily go into Big Eye with this deck. So Alexandrite, great card. Easy way to get into a pretty big beater. Get into Big Eye. Also thins out your deck, gets a lot of the vanillas out of there if you need to, so that you're not dead drawing them later. Gem Knight Turtle, I have him at 2 right now. I might go up to 3. This deck's still a little bit of a work in progress, but long story short, when he's flipped, I add 1 Gem Knight Fusion from my deck to my hand. So he's a searcher. It lets me add Gem Knight Fusion to my hand without wasting a draw on it, which is really nice. And he's a rock type, which rock types are pretty big for the fusion summons in this deck. And so far, these are all rocks. We got 10 rocks here, 3 rocks here, 3 rocks here, and 2 more here. So you have 18 rock type, 19 rock monsters in your deck, which we'll get into why that's kind of important later. Alright, so Gem Knight Fusion. This card is broken as hell, and it's what makes the deck run. I send from my hand or side of the field to the graveyard the fusion material monsters listed on a Gem Knight Fusion monster card. Okay, pretty basic, so it's like polymerization. But then, after I special summon it, if this card is in my graveyard, I can banish 1 Gem Knight monster from the grave to add this card to my hand. So it's a recyclable polymerization. And it's abusable as fuck, which I'll get into its abusability later. Alright, Gem Knight Lazul. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target 1 normal monster in the graveyard, add it to your hand. So if you use Gem Knight Fusion and send him to the grave, you're bouncing back a vanilla to your hand to use for another fusion summon. Or if you have if you have a vanilla monster in your grave and you mill him with like Card Trooper, you bounce that vanilla back to your hand. It's an awesome way to keep a huge hand in order to just go off and mass summon your fusion monsters. So he's a pro in this deck for sure. Gem Knight Tourmaline, why do I run him? Because he's a Thunder type, and some of the cards in your extra deck require specifically Thunder or Pyro types, which is why I run 3 Tourmaline and 3 Garnet. Yeah, they're vanillas, that kind of sucks, but you need them to access the best monsters in your extra deck, and it's like, well, running vanillas is necessary to get to your best monsters. Rabbit's a card, so that works out beautifully. Anyway, as you guys can see, 0 traps in this deck. I run Gores because you play 0 back row. Why wouldn't you run Gores? Yeah. Alright. Next up, some staples. Reborn, Hole, Heavy, Mind Control, because obviously. 2 Trag because I can't run 3. Uh, Again, you keep huge hands in this deck. Lazul keeps your hand big. You can bounce Gem Knight Fusions from your grave to your hand to keep your hand big. Your hand should be full of monsters to fusion summon and go off and off and off. So Trag, I mean, I've had a Trag while playing this deck. I've summoned a Trag off of him attacking into my card trooper. Summon Trag. Next turn, my turn, I draw. He's up to 3,600. I bounce 2 Gem Knight Fusions to my hand. I had Trag at 4,800. I mean, it's ridiculous how big Trag can get in this deck. And if you don't have the cards you need in your hand, a lot of times you can just sit on Trag and stall and say, get over my 3,000 or 3,600 beater. And just good luck with that shit, because it's not going to be fun. Alright, Card Trooper, you guys know what it does. You know why it's good. Thins out my deck, gets some vanillas in my grave to make Lazul live, and shit like that. It's also a floater. There's just nothing that isn't good about this card. Alright, next up, Mega Rock Dragon. Remember how I said having rock monsters was going to be nice? Have I just banish 1 rock monster from my grave to special summon him and attack? Now, if I have, like, late in the game, if I have, like, 6 rock monsters in my grave, I can banish all of them to have him come out at 4,200, because it's, the number of, cards you banish times 700. So he can drop for, like, 4,200 attack in late game if you need him to. But the best way to use him is normal summon Alexandrite, uses effect, special summon Crystal, banish Alexandrite, special summon Mega Rock, overlay, Big Eye. It's awesome. It's awesome. Alright, Gigantes. You special summon him by removing from play 1 Earth monster in the graveyard, and when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, destroy all spell and traps on the field. A couple uses for him. The main one is getting my rank 4 Exceed plays to get Laval Chain. Then I detach a monster from Laval Chain, send Gem Knight Fusion to my grave, bounce Gem Knight Fusion to my hand, and now I'm ready to go off. Or, if I need to, special summon him, suicide him into my opponent's monster that's stronger, destroy all their spell and traps, and now I can go off and special summon some really big beaters and not have to worry about what the hell they're doing. Next is Raikou, because Raikou is Raikou and milling is good in this deck to make your Mega Rock Dragon plays live and shit like that. And just to kind of thin out the deck, make sure your Lazul is live, and he pops a monster, or pops a card. Doesn't have to be a monster. The only problem I'm running into with this deck is sometimes the milling, like, it's usually not too much, but every once in a while I'll get both crystals in my hand and suddenly the Alexandrite Mega Rock play for my Big Eye is dead. That's always disappointing. And you almost never dead draw a rabbit, but it has happened, and that's really disappointing. So milling can be a little iffy, but again, if you, flip Raikou, pop their monster, mill Gem Knight Fusion, bounce it to your hand, that's gold. Anyway, Morphing Jar, because you're special summoning a lot with this deck, you can easily special summon out your entire hand, then just set him, they flip him, boom, 5 more monsters to your hand, just in case you get caught overextending and hit a Mirror Force or something retarded like that. Then the extra deck, I'll go into this more in a later video, but real quick, I just want to talk about how I think this deck can stack up against the meta. It does not do so well against certain decks, but it does very well against Dino Rabbit, because you're like, okay, Gem Knight Fusion, Logia, negate. Okay, Alexandrite, normal summon, boom, effect right into Crystal, run it over. Now you have a Gem Knight in your grave, bounce Gem Knight Fusion back to your hand, and just, you're going. There's a lot of other stuff too. I'll talk about later, but I think they match up pretty well against Mermails and shit, but, I'll go into more of this in a later video if you guys want. So, thanks for listening, and let me know if you guys want more info about Gem Knights.